this is Dr. Mears. Today we're going to be learning about box plots again, which are also called box and whisker plots. And I would like you to write this on top, back-to-back box plots. I should have titled it back-to-back because that's what we're making. What you see here, the data that you see below, is not a frequency table. I tried to separate it to make sure to show you that it's not a frequency. These are actually data taken from the same 25 randomly selected people. The first set is the text messages they sent yesterday. The second set of data is the text messages they received yesterday. So these are the number of messages. For example, the first person sent 20 and the first person received 20. If you drop down, the last person sent 150 yesterday and received 200 yesterday. So these are different sets of data. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a box plot for the first set, and we're going to make a box plot for the second set, hence back-to-back box plot. So on the bottom it says we'll be making a back-to-back box plot. To make a box plot, you will need 5 statistical values from each set, which are the minimum, quartile 1, median, quartile 3, and maximum. And hopefully you did the first box plot video, so this should hopefully come a little bit easier. Remember, this is not a frequency table. So we have to gather 2 sets of data, and I know I have them here, but I'm actually going to drop the calculator down in front for a quick sec. And the cord's kind of okay. And so you'll see here, what I'm going to do is I'm press stat, and we need to edit. And so this is how I set it up. In L1, I put the sent messages. In L2, I put the received. However, when we compile our data to get our 5-number summary, which are those 5 statistical values, you're not going to put L1 comma. This is what you're going to do. You're going to press stat and then over to calc like we usually do. We are going to do 1 for 1 variable statistics, 1 var stats. But here's the thing. I'm going to press second, and then I'm going to press 1. And L1 is going to come up, and that's it, because I just want the data on that first set. I'm going to press enter, and you'll see down here the minimum is 0, like what I have. Quartile 1 is 10. Just keep scrolling down. 50, 100, and 300, checking those. Then what you could do is clear it out by pressing clear. Back to stat and calc. Enter. And now to get that second set, this set over here, that was in my second list, so I'm going to push second 2. And you'll see L2 is now on the calculator. And so L2 will get this second set of data here. Enter, and you will see minimum is 2, quartile 1 is 10, scrolling down, 50, 200.5, and 305. So that's how you can do it. Remember, it's not a frequency, so you are going to get 2 different sets of data, and here they are. So I would take a minute, pause, I would put my numbers in, I would make sure that you could run 1 variable statistics, make sure you're getting the same numbers, put them in your sheet, and then come back. Okay, hopefully you're back. Move this cord a little bit. Okay, now what we're going to do is make a back-to-back box plot. And I already actually done it for you here. But I do want you to title it. I titled it texting. I do want you to label it. These are points that I look for, and so does IB when you take paper 1 and paper 2. I went by 25s from 0 all the way to 325 down here. I also labeled it. I did sent. This is sent minimum, which is 0. Quartile 1, which was 10. The median, which is 50. Quartile 3, which was 100, and then you see the maximum, which is 300. And then I did received, and I labeled them. Received, the minimum was 2. The quartile 1 was also 10. The median was also 10. The quartile 3 was 200, and the maximum was 305. So this is called a back-to-back box plots because they're back-to-back. You can now compare. You can see, ooh, the medians are exactly the same, and so are the first quartiles. But what's different is this box from the median all the way to quartile 3. This box right here is definitely bigger than this one down here. So it gives us a visual representation to compare our data. so that we can look to see. And then we can go on to start comparing our percentiles now. So underneath here, you actually have this written again. I typed this up for you in that first sheet. Nothing is different. I just cut and pasted it over so that you would have it again. It's always good to have what percentiles are, so I'm not going to read through it. The quartiles, same thing, 25% of the values lie between the minimum and the lower, 25 between the lower and the median, 25 between median and the upper, and 25 between upper and the maximum, and that's why they're called quartiles, because they divide the data into quarters, which are so cool. So let's look to see what conclusions we can make. And I actually wrote this as well, which is why our video is going to be a little bit shorter than everything else. So let me back this up a little bit. Here we go. All right. So what does this all mean for making a meaningful interpretation or conclusion? Because that's what you're going to have to do for your internal assessment. So let's compare both sets of data to each other. So the 50th percentile, which is the median, in context, this is what I said, and you do not have to use my exact words. You just have to understand the concept behind it and be able to write it. Both sent and received had the same median of 50 messages. This means that 50% of the messages sent and received were below 50 messages. So that's a number of messages, a lot of 50s in that sentence. Let's look to see what the 25th percentile, which is quartile 1, which is also called the lower quartile. Sent and received both had the same quartile 1 of 10 messages. Wow. This means 25% of the messages sent and received were below 10 messages. So 25% of people who sent and received the messages only sent and received 10 or less. So that's what that means. How about the 75th? Quartile 3 was 100 messages for sent and 200.5 for received. This is where they differ. So we saw similarities, and now we're seeing where they differ. 75% of messages sent were below 100. 75% of those received were below 205. Many more were definitely received than sent. So I'm making not only a meaningful interpretation, but also a conclusion. I stated similarities, I stated differences, and then I actually said what were definitely sent or received more, which was the received. So this is how you go about graphing, showing comparison visually, and then really interpreting it and making a conclusion. And that's it. There are more interpretations, but we need to learn about spread, which is coming up next. And spread will actually conclude our chapter. So just make sure you're keeping up with all your work. I hope this helped. It's been Dr. Mears doing back-to-back box plots, and I'll talk to you soon.